So PieDAO is a decentralized asset allocator that works as a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. Think of it much in the same way of a community rather than a company, and everybody's working together to try and achieve a common goal. The common goals that PieDAO share as a mission is to make wealth generation more accessible to as many people as possible. And the way that we believe that this is going to be possible is by building the financial products that allow people to invest in a responsible and diversified manner with ease. So one of the most famous investors of the 20th and 21st centuries is Ray Dalio, who is the founder and current CEO of Bridgewater Capital. And he's become very famous for his philosophy of diversification. The same with Warren Buffett, under the policy of advocating that people invest in ETFs in order to minimize their risk and maximize their exposure to lots of different asset classes. So if you're not sure what you want to buy in the crypto space, because it's all too confusing, because there are Bitcoin maximalists on one side, and there are crazy Ethereum people. There aren't that many Ethereum maximalists, but you might have some people saying you should ape into all of these different DeFi projects and lots of other wacky things going on. If it's all just too confusing, then it makes sense to build your portfolio in a diversified way, weighted by the market cap, so the market can determine the relative risk that would be associated with holding these positions. And that's what PieDAO allows you to do. So the flagship product of PieDAO is the Balanced Crypto Pi, BCP, which is 1/3 wrapped Bitcoin, 1/3 Ethereum, and 1/3 DeFi++. DeFi++ being all of the main projects in DeFi that are built on top of the Ethereum blockchain, since PieDAO is overly linked to Ethereum. And that allows you to, what that allows you to do is to have an entire portfolio in one token. So you don't need to really think too much about how you want to allocate. If you do want to speculate on individual projects, say you have a real passion for SushiSwap, then you can overly invest into SushiSwap. You love their ethos. You love well, there's been a lot of drama at SushiSwap, but if you believe in an industry as a whole, then what you want to do is to buy an index, and that's what PieDAO makes. So rather than having traditional fund managers manage these indexes, where you may have, I mean, how many people do you have managing a traditional index? Like 2 to 6 people. You would have all of the token holders of the DAO have a vested financial interest in ensuring that the index is managed as responsibly as possible. All of the governance token holders are incentivized to make sure that goes as well as possible. So you have, instead of 2 to 6 fund managers, you have maybe, who do you have, like 390 BasketDAO wallet addresses at the moment?
Only 390 exactly at the point of us speaking right now, yes.
That's wild.
It is, especially compared to other DAO's participation rates. I won't slag off the DAO by name, but we were looking at other ones and it's like participation rates are like sub 1%. And
most DAOs have just awful participation rates.
Yeah, you can't call that decentralized.
On Twitter the other day, how PieDAO has, I think, the governance token holders 69.4% or something.
Mm-hmm.
Of the governance token holders actively vote in the proposals, which is, I mean, tens of times higher, hundreds of times higher than many of the leading DAOs, who just have sort of governance token holders without any utility attached to them, so no incentive to actually participate, which is bad for the DAOs, because then they can't utilize the brain energy that they would otherwise have been able to get going in to make the DAO more efficient.
Could you touch on how specifically PieDAO incentivizes people to participate in governance?
Yeah, so in October, PieDAO launched an initiative of governance mining, whereby those people who had staked their governance tokens for a period of time between 6 months and 36 months and so sort of pledged their loyalty to the community, would be able to vote on governance decisions related to the DAO, and would also share proportionally in profits generated by the DAO. And it's been hugely important in incentivizing people to participate. I don't know any other DAO that has higher rates of participation in governance. I don't know any other DAO that has a more keen community. PieDAO community is still relatively small, but it's very efficient, and it's operating as it says on the tin. It works quite perfectly. I was thinking though about when DAOs grow. I think that maybe you could expand this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How the working groups scale with the DAO, and how efficient it is to scale these operations, because of Dunbar's number where you only know 150 people and blah 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 blah. Can all of this stuff grow sustainably, or does it need vectors of centralization?
Okay, so there's definitely a degree to which any kind of organisation will have some kind of centralisation, because some people will know more about a certain topic than others. To contrast a fully centralised organisation to a DAO, the advantages of scaling that a DAO possesses are that all the brainpower doesn't have to be funneled through single points, single choke points. Say you have a fantastic idea, say 30% of your company has a fantastic idea and they want to work on this, they want to kind of feel this idea out, feel that it might eventually go somewhere, but you're in a centralised company and the guy at the top, the CEO, whatever kind of name you have for the leader, if he doesn't like that idea, he has the veto power to cancel you out. In a DAO, that's not necessarily the case at all. If you control a reasonable amount of the kind of energy in that DAO, if you... It means so that your voice is heard and it's unvetoable. That's definitely not a word, but it does function properly.
Yeah, it's unvetoable. That, we can make it a word.
It is now. It says Jonathan Feasby.
So then comparing DAOs to TruffI, so you have like a more open voice. It's more of a, vox populi, vox dei.
Mm.
And do you think that scales? Do you think that the governance itself can scale to many people?
Yes, of course. The thing with DAO scaling abilities is that they aren't capped with the same regulations that in real life organisations are capped. You can't. It's unfeasible to communicate with, say, 1 million people in a office, for instance. That's just it. Just the sentence itself, it just doesn't work. That is possible in a DAO, by contrast to that.
Yeah.
So,
can you speak a little bit to the mechanics of how you incentivize a community to work together to achieve a common goal, and some of the strategies that PieDAO has employed to do this?
Okay, sure. So if you're working in a DAO, you have wealth locked into the DAO's tokens. So if you have your energy stored in the DAO's governance tokens, then you are financially incentivized to work for the DAO in the most honest and useful way possible, because that will increase your wealth, that will increase the value of the governance token. Any kind of malicious activity on the token holder's part not only diminishes the wealth of everybody else, but it also diminishes their own wealth if they are a part of it. So you have to have staked the governance token to have a say in votes and that. If you vote maliciously, if you vote against the best interests of the community or of the DAO generally, then you can do that, but it's not that it makes it impossible. It makes it so that your incentives are aligned with the best interests of the DAO, which is a far more effective way of discouraging bad actors.
Yeah, I think something that's cool about that as well with PieDAO is that, like, if you want to buy PieDAO products like BCP, you can stake BCP and accrue governance tokens, farm DAO, which you can convert to VDAO, and you can participate in the process of how this index is actively managed. You have a say. You can vote on all of it. Everybody's very receptive. If you go and talk to the community in Discord or across Twitter, and then I think it really does scale to incentivize people to come and help the DAO as well when you have particular structures like PieDAO. Because if PieDAO is particularly looking for more liquidity in a particular area, as they have been in the past, then you heavily incentivize particular tokens. So the DAO ETH liquidity pool on SushiSwap is heavily incentivized with farming rewards, as is the Play and DAO liquidity pool as well. So all of these things has become different ways that people can help the DAO. And I think that people can help in all sorts of different ways. Like, you don't need to be a developer. I'm not a developer. Are you a developer?
Definitely not.
Okay. But you can do like translations.
I wish.
Yeah, this is one of the things that first attracted me to PieDAO is that anybody can do anything to help them. So you can write an article about how you find it fascinating that everything's working this way. You can help translate articles. You can put on events and things. The scope is limitless, and I don't think that's something that you really get in a setting, in a physical setting of work. You would never have the opportunity to just let your imagination go wild, whilst at the same time not being constrained by all of the limitations.
So to bring this back round to DeFi specifically, PieDAO is currently in the process of acquiring BasketDAO's assets after a hack. Could you explain how this came about and what it means for DeFi in general?
Right, yeah, so there are lots of hacks in DeFi. They're happening all of the time. It's definitely a risk that people ought to consider. BasketDAO was a DAO that was similar to PieDAO in that they were focused on investing in lots of different DeFi projects through indexes. So I think the most similar token that they had was the BasketDAO index, I think it was called, and it's most similar to what we would have DeFi++, the equivalent in PieDAO. And after the hack, the BasketDAO team decided that they wanted to wind down operations. So they were put in touch with the PieDAO team to talk about a possible DAO to DAO acquisition, which would be the first of its kind ever in the history of DeFi. Then obviously you have a lot of questions arising. How do you do a DAO to DAO acquisition? So PieDAO decided to make use of UMA or UMA, their KPI options, so that such that past a certain point, the BasketDAO TVL has been transferred from BDI to DeFi++. There would be extra forms of remuneration to incentivize this paid out in the PieDAO's governance tokens, be DAO or stake DAO as VDAO. And I think it's still underway. I think a lot of the details are still being ironed out, but I think it's just one of the things that PieDAO has done with UMA that has been really great. I think the key performance indicator options, UMA's KPI options are super fascinating. Maybe you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, sure. So UMA, however you want to pronounce it.
UMA.
It depends on the day, doesn't it? It depends what you're doing. But anyway, KPI options, they stand for key performance indicator options, and it's a way of rewarding people proportional to the success that they have with a given initiative. So the round of KPI options that PieDAO instituted was to track DAO staked, and that meant that in a certain period of time, if X amount of DAO was staked, you'd receive one level of reward. In this case, I believe it was 1 million DAO. And then if you have the next level of total DAO staked, then a larger reward is given out, and then a max tier. So if you reach the actual goal, a maximal amount of rewards are given out. So it's a way of incentivizing the community to pursue whatever metric it is that you are incentivizing. In this case, it was staking DAO. But those options are really successful. It's a way of kind of...
They're super flexible as well.
Yeah, exactly.
With KPI options, you can use any measurable metric. You can integrate it into the smart contracts, and then it's just sort of if-else clauses. If the DAO achieves this metric, then you will pay out this amount to governance holders. It's just a great way to encourage everybody to work together. And PieDAO almost hit the top bracket to have 15 million out of, I think, 100 million total supply to be staked, but they missed it by like a week to get the full payout of 5 million VDO as opposed to 2 million for those who had staked in October. But the new round of KPI options is being talked about at the moment in the forum, and these ones will be a little bit different. Can you talk about that?
Yes, certainly. So for the first round of KPI options, the rewards were distributed to people who staked in the first month of the, I believe it was 6-month period. With the second round of KPI options, the rewards will be distributed to everybody that stakes throughout the duration that the options are active.
Excellent. So the idea is to have as many governance tokens taken off the market as possible to reduce selling pressure, and also to have as many people aligned with the DAO for 3 years.
Yes, primarily. Yes.
Beautiful. Can you speak a little bit to actually no, before we do that, yeah, we're talking about BasketDAO, their BDI token holders being incentivized to join PieDAO by converting the TVL through UMA's KPI options to DeFi++. DeFi++ has been under discussion quite a lot recently at PieDAO because it's made up of 2 other pies. Can you speak a little bit to the changes under discussion at the moment here?
Okay, yeah, sure. So there's obviously the 2 different pies are DeFi large cap, which tracks larger cap DeFi projects, more established ones, and DeFi small cap, which was the kind of riskier projects with a high potential for growth. But what we found was, as we let this play out, this small cap projects are going to become larger, so UMA blew up, and it's debatable whether you want to still call it a small cap project. So there's kind of blurred lines between how you would define them and all those kind of things. And also it's harder to supply liquidity for 2 pies as it is to just supply 1 pie. So in the name of efficiency, what the community decided to come together and do was merge the 2 separate pies into one, into DeFi++. So that means people will have their equity migrated over into the DeFi++ pie, and you get a more succinct product overall.
Yeah, I think it certainly makes sense from a branding point of view as well, given that the pies that are currently in the DeFi small cap pie are UMA, Ren, Loopering, Balancer, P Network, and Melon. You wouldn't call all of these small cap projects. I mean, Ren is definitely a blue chip. I think it makes sense that they joined the DeFi++ pie as part of PieDAO's ongoing product refinement initiative, which has already seen USD++ and BTC++ deprecated, and YPie as well, I believe.
Yeah. So
that will mean that our pies are becoming more solidified and concentrated, which I think is a good thing. Because it allows the PieDAO community to specialize and focus on what really works. I think you would expect a lot of experimentation from a small, agile, flexible DAO like this one, and I think this is a good way to be heading. In terms of people who see PieDAO. And I think this looks amazing. I love it. I want the founder to have my children.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit how it is to work for a DAO and your sort of process in getting more involved and what it means really in terms of, because we had lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. Explain what do you think?
Explain what it means to work for a DAO and how that differentiates from
I don't know.
traditional
What have you been up to for the last 3 years?
Okay, so working for a DAO, this was obviously highlighted by the pandemic and the lockdowns, but DAOs build off of the potential that became more apparent when the lockdowns happened and people realised, okay, you don't have to be in the same geographical location to work on a project together. If it's code and it's on the blockchain, that's distributed to anybody who has an internet connection and who can access the blockchain. So what ended up happening was that companies, organisations, but mostly people came together from all different parts of the world and thought, hey, we can work on this project with the project managers from Chile and the developers from Uganda and all these different things, and we can harness all that brain power regardless of geographic limitations into one online DAO. So the first thing that you're going to notice when you either make the change from Web 2 to Web 3 or when you jump into the world of DAO work generally is that there are almost no barriers to entry at all. Most of the kind of workings of a DAO are held on Discord, other similar apps, and all you have to do is click the verify button and join the server. So and you can see the founders and all of that talking just in the chats with regular people that like regular people. And if you've ever tried to get into an investment bank, you could imagine how hard it is to get hold of the CEO or something. But if you want to get an answer or something from somebody that holds a lot of voting power in a DAO, all you have to do is drop a message in the Discord, and they will more likely reply more or less straight away. So
yeah, I mean, I think like community is everything really with a DAO. So for anybody to want to foster a culture of good community anywhere, you have to be nice to each other. And when you're in the blockchain space, because everything is so transparent in terms of meritocratic output, there's really no incentive for animosity at all, because everybody has their incentives aligned. Especially with something like PieDAO, where they're really trailblazing the revolution in DeFi governance structures. I mean, you could be anyone. You could be Muslim, Christian. You could be a transgender swimmer. And you can have a profile picture of an Azuki or a bored ape, or I bought one of those NFTs of those little frogs.
Crocs? Is it with a Z?
Yeah. There's a little green frog with a party hat smoking a cigarette. No one knows who you are, or maybe they do, but they don't really care. Like the only the mainstay of the DAO is that we're all in this because we find something interesting. We have a common goal, and we want to work on this project. I mean, and I think the thing that aligns people in PieDAO is not necessarily that they have a sort of frog fetish, but they just love the idea of investing for the long term, making responsible decisions, because it aligns with their investment philosophy and how it fits into their life. And there are all sorts of different ways that they can contribute to help this community grow, and this community will help them grow, and it's beneficial for everybody. I think it's just a much more. I think working in DAOs, even if you're on the other side of the planet to somebody else, is a much more humanizing force than working within an office with somebody, because whenever I've worked, not all the time, normally people you work with are pretty annoying. But
that is true. I can verify that fact.
But you don't have to put up with that if you're working with them on Discord. So it's fine. Everyone's happy.
I think it gets at a more meritocratic system than would actually be possible in an office environment.
For sure, yeah. I think it rewards you more on output versus input.
You're not able to discriminate against people because there's much less kind of kind of information to go on. You're purely judged on the kind of useful output that you create to a DAO.
Yeah.
Which is completely different to if you're, let's say, in the office workplace, then there's more of, do you fit into the social norms? Do you fit into the kind of Overton window of that particular society? That's much less the case in a DAO. It's much more the case that you are judged on, do you do good work?
And I think particularly with the PieDAO structure, I think one of the concerns like a lot of DAOs have is that you have people coming in to provide liquidity, to chase yield farming rewards, because they're super high, and then it's just mercenary capital and they leave. With PieDAO, if you do want to provide liquidity, the rewards are amazing. They're very juicy, but you won't be able to access the rewards immediately. 20% will be liquid immediately. 80% will be escrowed. And so of that 80% that's escrowed, you can either claim it after 6 months as staked DAO for 3 years, in which case you have an incentive to help the DAO for 3 years, or you can wait a year and then claim it, in which case you have at least a year where you want to do things that are good for the DAO. So I think this policy of escrowing liquidity rewards as well is one that I'm surprised hasn't taken off, because PieDAO's been doing this for over a year now. But PieDAO's doing a lot of new things that I think it's just a very small. I mean, let's help spread the word, because it's. I think it's a great project. People who are interested in the long term for their futures, for capital accumulation, for whatever reason, ought to definitely have a look at trying to understand PieDAO and the way that DAOs work, especially if you're working in a stupid fiat job.
Yes.
With no sandals.
So to switch topics, out of the various underlying assets that are in the DeFi ++ pie, so that'll include DeFi L and DeFi S for the sake of this question, are there any of the underlying assets which strike you as the most interesting, that have a particularly interesting use case, etc.?
Yeah, so I think one of the most interesting things about Ethereum is that the idea of, if you have Bitcoin, you can Michael Saylor talks a lot about how you can decentralize stores of value, you can decentralize energy, you can dematerialize. Dematerialize stores of value, dematerialize energy to make it better, faster, stronger, whatever. And I think with Turing complete blockchains like Ethereum, and Ethereum is definitely the dominant one, you're working to dematerialize lots of other aspects of society. So NFTs, you might say they're dematerializing private members clubs. DAOs, you could say they're dematerializing office space, and they're dematerializing all of the transport links that you would need for commuting. It's just not necessary in a digital world that's more efficient and more scalable. So I've always been interested in Aave, because I love this idea that you can build a company that's basically just a protocol, and I think that sort of underlies what all of DeFi is. You put out the code, you get a community around it, you get people to use the code, you attract liquidity, and then, as with any code, that's what the DAO is for. You have the code on the base layer, and then you have the community on top who are governing over it to make sure that it does what they want. In the same way that you have a constitution for a country, and then you have a parliament to make sure that you can deal with all the quirks. It's exactly the same thing. But you can have a fully functioning company that's generating revenue. Aave generates lots of revenue. They have 20 billion in TVL or something, and it's all governed by the token holders. I think it's much better than their competitors Compound, because Aave is English, even though it was set up by Stani Kulichov from Finland, I think. Aave means ghost in Finnish. But also, Aave, I just love the idea that everybody can launch these decentralized. What's it called when you short one currency and go go super bullish on another one. Everyone can launch these decentralized sort of speculative attacks against fiat. But that's what I find beautiful about Aave. It facilitates an easy way for everybody to do this. Everybody can just buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, borrow stable coins against them, leverage up. It's beautiful. And the PieDAO treasury has made very good use of these things. And Aave also has a policy of being able to farm their governance token. I think the PieDAO treasury has like $50,000 or $60,000 worth of this farmed now that they could potentially use for governance. And this was something that hasn't been talked about for a little bit actually in PieDAO, but the idea of meta governance. That VDAO could become your passport to DeFi to vote on all of these other governance decisions across all of these other different DAOs. So the assets that PieDAO would accumulate as part of their TVL that would offer governance rights could be used by VDAO holders to represent the best interests of PieDAO. I think there's an avenue that's going to be explored further as the DAO grows, but maybe it needs to grow a little bit more before it's worthwhile.
It's still early days, so...
Super early days.
A kind of notion that I keep coming back to when talking about DeFi, when talking about Web3 in general, is it's not the absence of good ideas, it's that there's so many, it's hard to choose from them.
Yeah.
It's such a...
There are a lot of bad ideas as well, though. There are a lot of terrible ideas. Did you see that guy? Did you see the Netflix documentary about like the missing crypto king, about the Quadriga guy?
No, actually, I got recommended this, but I never got around to watching it. So if you could explain it for me.
You've got to watch it. Basically, it's about the Canadian exchange, right? Quadriga, and the founder goes missing in India. And it's super mysterious. And everyone's like, "Oh, what's going on?" Blah 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 blah. Is he really dead? Is he faking his death? No, is a bit weird that he disappeared with all of this money at 30 years old and he dies of something that almost nobody dies from. Is that suspicious? And then they're going through the motions, blah blah blah. But there was a little bit of a mention of this guy who was involved in the Time or Wonderland scandal, 0x Sifu, Omar Danani, Michael Patron, who went by loads of different names, who's been looting DeFi recently. So there are definitely places to get scammed and robbed in DeFi. I think that's why I would encourage people not to just I would, if you're going to invest in anything in DeFi, you want to know what you're investing in. So there's only so much you can get to know a massive project. You can't get to meet everybody face to face. You want to know that the people who are running the project aren't convicted fraudsters. I always say
that would be a plus. I would say.
Yeah, that is a level of comfort that is nice. And do you know, you might never know if they're convicted fraudsters or not, and that's why you want to diversify your assets. You might buy projects that some are run by convicted fraudsters. Most probably won't be, and that's why I think PieDAO is amazing. Yes. Do you want to talk about the farming as a service initiative and how expanding out there?
Yeah, so a service that PieDAO have been offering recently is to deploy inactive assets in other DAO's treasuries to earn a yield for them and then generate more revenue for the DAO who own the assets. So you can go through CoinMarketCap and load or Etherscan or whatever and look at all these DAOs and look at how many of them have treasuries of like $20 million worth plus, and they are just holding it either in their governance token or in ETH or wrapped Bitcoin or whatever. The thing with having inactive assets is that your returns are going to be completely dependent on the price action of that asset. What PieDAO is offering is to deploy these assets, say you have ETH, to deploy these assets to either lend them, collateralize them, etc. So you can earn a yield on these assets. So PieDAO recently got into a partnership with the Sandbox to deploy some of their assets Do you know the exact numbers for what we've been? I think it's about.
I think it was a 3-month pilot with $1 million for the sandbox deployed into wrapped Bitcoin, wrapped ETH, and stable coins. And the PieDAO treasury is massively outperforming the benchmark for this pilot. So we hope that Sandbox will stay with us with so that we can do more for them. But yeah, I think the idea of treasury management services for other DAOs is fascinating. It would be another arrow in the quiver for PieDAO.
I believe it would be another first as well.
Another first. So we already have a first. We've got BasketDAO acquisition.
Yeah, so we've got the first DAO to DAO acquisition, the first treasury management.
The governance mining. Governance
the first
mining.
governance mining.
Impressions
initiative.
mining, I think.
I think other DAOs probably do something similar. Possibly. So
escrowing liquidity farming rewards. Is that a first? I don't know many other DAOs doing that.
Should we say 4.5? 4.5 first.
We should probably account for the ones that we're not aware of. So I'd say 7.
Yeah, just give it just round it up to a nice even 10.
do you want to talk about play? So as part of the content initiative, we should talk about how we're working to get the PieDAO community more involved. And especially how we're working to get the PieDAO community more involved in content production. So one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to get as many people as possible really who are keen to write articles and who are keen to do translations, who are keen to make little videos, do voiceovers, all sorts of little things. Anything that you can do to explain what our products do. Particularly we have a massive drive going at the moment for our PlayPie, which is our leading index. It's probably more of a flagship index now than BCP. And Play is our index focused on the metaverse. So it was originally metaverse, NFT, and gaming, but we narrowed the scope a little bit to exclude the assets that track the floor prices of certain PFPs because they weren't liquid enough, and we wanted people to be able to buy a lot at a time without causing mayhem. So yeah, at the moment we have a massive drive pushing for as much as we can to educate people about why they should invest in the metaverse, why PieDAO is the best place to do it, and I mean if you're interested in investing in the metaverse and you're looking to invest in things like Sand, Gala, Illuvium, Mana, save yourself on the gas fees and just do it through PieDAO. It's so much easier. 400 of us will manage it for you. If you think that you're better than 400 people,
fight me.
Then
fight 400
fight 400 of us.
That should be our tagline, you know? That should be like the PieDAO.
Well, if you think you're better than a DAO, then fight everyone in the DAO.
If you want to invest your assets anywhere else, you have to fight all 400 of us.
What would you do if Mike Tyson came up to you and he said, "Alright, Jono, I hear you're leading the charge. Let's go to town, motherfucker."
Well, obviously I would go straight after him valiantly because I know I have 399 other DAO members to back me up.
Bullshit.
I wouldn't, of course, but in this hypothetical, I definitely would.
69.4% of them will show some level of involvement. That means 31% are gone. You've already Mike Tyson beats you out, and you've already lost a third of your support. I'm not going to help you.
Wait, no. So do you think? Wait, what's 70% of 400? Do you think 70% of 400 people could? Yeah. Do you think 280 people could beat? Of course, 280 people could beat Mike Tyson in a fight.
Well, I mean, we haven't met all of the people who are in PieDAO. That's the thing. Like, they could all be midgets.
Well, I suppose people who are super into DeFi are probably not the kind of people who are known to win physical altercations. I don't know. I suppose there could be some crossover in that. We're massively off topic now. Should we bring it back? Or do you want to
I was just thinking, is anyone in the UFC who's bought loads of Ethereum publicly?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, let's get back on
that'd be
topic. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll close out with one more question, which is going to appear as a complete non sequitur, following on from the previous conversation we just had. But what are the trends that you think will dominate the DeFi sphere in the rest of 2022?
I think the intersection of DeFi, DAOs, and NFTs, and Bitcoin, all coming together, will be pretty interesting. I think there'll be a lot of new DAOs launching on other chains, like Avalanche, Polygon, and I think NFTs to be used as tools for accruing governance tokens and representing membership. That's something that there's definitely seems to be popping off at the moment with Zuki and the ape coin. What do you think are going to be the major trends?
If I was to say one particular trend, it would definitely be the options market. If you look at the size of the traditional financial markets and the percentage of that it comes from options and futures, and then compare that to the world of crypto and DeFi, the percentages are completely skewed. The kind of core crypto market has grown at a much faster rate than the options market has. So I think in this latter half of 2022, the crypto options sphere will grow and become proportionally larger to the traditional crypto sphere. I think there's a massive untapped market of potential there, and there's so much more potential with crypto options, as we saw when we looked at the UMA's offerings and the KPI stuff. It's a massively more mobile market. It has the potential to be a massively more mobile market, and I think that use case, that fundamentally useful use case, will eventually be developed upon. I think that'll happen this year.
Yeah, I mean, the options market's growing a lot, but I mean, I don't know. I suppose there are use cases for people buying options contracts, puts and things to hedge themselves against risky bets. But that seems to be a very institution-driven form of growth to me. I can't see many people in retail hedging themselves with options contracts. And there are some decentralized options platforms now, which they look quite interesting. But do you really think it's going to be that much of a growth? I would have thought. I mean, the way I look at it is you've got like 200 million people now who own crypto, something like that. It's 2 or 3% of the world. I don't think that like most of the people most of the people coming in are not going to be institutions. So I think that the cultural wave of this crypto adoption will outweigh a lot of the financial incentives of these institutions who, I think, maybe they're well intentioned, but I think their models, a lot of them are just wrong. This is a new wave they don't understand. Crypto is not like a normal company. It follows Metcalfe's law. All of these different networks follow Metcalfe's law. PieDAO, when it fattens up a little bit, will follow Metcalfe's law. I suppose it is at the moment. You can actually see the rate of progression on Juno Analytics for how many new holders of BCP and the other pies we're getting. But I'm not sure the options are like. I'm not sure they're going to be. I'm not sure that's what everyone's going to remember 2022 for in the DeFi space. I think people are going to remember this year as the year for DAOs.
Okay, so one potential issue that you could have when looking at options in the crypto space is if you ignore all of the kind of short-term volatility or even kind of medium-term volatility with Bitcoin and Ethereum and that, there's not many people who would be willing to sell you a deep in the money call on Bitcoin, like 2 years, 3 years, or a deep in the money call on Ethereum either, because the overwhelming sentiment is that in longer periods of time, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Maybe this would be the modern way of challenging Peter Schiff to a duel. you challenge him to, if you're so confident, I'll buy out the money call options from you at this price, and he'll say, yeah, sure, no problem.
I have thought about doing that to people.
You bankrupt him.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a massive use case for options contracts exploding in 2030.
I suppose that's in regards specifically to Leap's option contracts. I think if you look at options as a term for leveraging short-term speculation, then there's definitely a massive market there.
Yeah, I think the stuff that UMA are doing, like, if you do this, contingent on this, then blah, 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 and integrating that with oracles could be super cool to get lots of different, because I don't know how limited they are at the moment in the sort of data they can bring on. Because in terms of fleshing out the new KPI options contracts for UMA, the upcoming round that are set to expire in October, it'd be interesting if we could get shed loads of data to build that off, to make it really tailored as possible. I'm not sure how much data the smart contracts can fit is not the right word. Put in them.
I know what you mean, but I suppose whatever the number is, that's definitely going to change over time as the technology becomes more advanced, more capable.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so that was all the questions that I had. Were there any points that you wanted to finish on? Any kind of message to people who might be encountering PieDAO for the first time through this podcast, or any parting words?
Yeah, I just say we're going to try and do this podcast as often as possible. Talk to as many different community members as possible about the various roles that they have in the community, how they help PieDAO, what they think about PieDAO, and what their views are on DeFi and the macro world in general, I suppose. And yeah, also I would just encourage people to get involved. Join the PieDAO Discord. There's a channel called I Want to Contribute, and it doesn't matter what you're proficient in. It doesn't matter if you're not proficient in anything. You might learn that you're alright at something, and I think that is that catchy enough for you? And also I have a closing question for you. No, it's gone.
I don't think that's a question.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you something about how you would compare, like when you look at your life 10 years from now. So you'd be in your 30s. How do you view the world of work? Because I think something that people are underestimating with DAOs. I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, somebody's doing it part-time, blah blah blah, they're doing this project with some internet nerds, blah 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 blah. Firstly, not everyone's a nerd. Maybe like 30%. But
nerds are probably the richest class of people in the world.
Exactly. Everyone loves nerds now.
Yeah. It's trendy to be a nerd now.
But like, how do you view the state of work? Because I think a lot of it will be digitalized.
I would say that yes, it would be completely digitalized. I think people will be less drawn into kind of long-term contracts. Just say 50 years ago, where we are now in the UK, there was the notion of a job for life. You would go and you would work at the steelworks, and you would have a job for life, and you would work at that job for 50 years, and you would become
not in Middlesbrough. They don't live that long.
Right. It's a small tangent. Do you know there was a certain area of Middlesbrough that has a life expectancy of 52? Do you know how insane that is? Anyway, that doesn't work.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And how, what's the top life expectancy in Middlesbrough?
Oh, it's normal. It's just like this one small area where it's just I've got no clue what they actually do there, but this
there's just one part of Middlesbrough where everyone dies at 52.
Yeah, so if you're 53 and you walk in, you just die instantly. I think work will look more like I have this kind of set of skills, and there'll be a platform where people go and say, look, I have this skill. And then other companies will come across and say, look, I'm in need of this skill for this task. I will pay you X amount %, Potentially through
that sounds so clinical and automated.
Potentially through a
that sounds
KPI.
that sounds like dystopia.
How does that sound like dystopia? Why is that not preferable?
I prefer the idea of people just sort of doing what they want,
Mm-hmm.
and then they find the community, they find the DAO that they like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they help the DAO, and then the DAO helps them,
Mm-hmm.
because that would be like the most efficient way to sort of do the transaction of capitalism, is to find people who are willing to help you because it's something you're passionate about, rather than just, you hit 18, bang, you get the choice, you're going down a mine or you're going to look at the tablet, and the tablet's going to tell you'd be good working for Compound or Maker. Like that sounds depressing.
I wouldn't say so. I'd say because you can choose your own skill that you want to work on, and
but people don't know what they want to do.
Then you have all these kind of offers. Well, you could just change it. You could learn a new skill, and then you have you have multiple different places where you can work, and then you can choose. You're not bound by geography to the kind of industry of the location that you were born in, for instance. Shall we finish on that?
Yeah.
Right, cool. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thanks, John. I'll see you next week, or
See
the week after that.
Whenever we record the next one, God knows when that's going to be. No promises.